Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, well, it's all about professional courage. Specifically, that really tricky, complex, and honestly often counterintuitive skill of saying no.
Yeah.
If you're working in a high-pressure spot, maybe leading a team, delivering software,
Yeah.
dealing with client expectations, you know the pressure, right? That immense pressure to just agree, to be the yes person.
Mm-hmm.
But our sources, and we've pulled these from analyses of some pretty big project failures and negotiation theory, they suggest that saying yes when something's impossible, that might just be the single fastest route to, well, things falling apart.
That's exactly right. And we're not just talking about, basic assertiveness tips here. This is a deep dive into what it means to be a professional.
Yeah.
Why are professionals, especially in fields like software where accuracy is key, why are they actually expected to say no?
Right.
It's not really about being difficult or insubordinate. It's more about defending reality.
Yeah.
You're paid for your judgment, and that judgment needs to be voiced, even if it creates a bit of friction. So the goal for you listening in is to quickly get a handle on the strategies you need, how to navigate those deadlines, manage expectations without just buckling under the pressure to avoid conflict. We want you to see that sometimes that professional confrontation, it's actually the only way to get the best outcome.
And that core idea is pretty heavy. Why saying yes is sometimes the absolute worst thing you can do for success, to really show the massive, sometimes catastrophic results of choosing harmony over reality. We need to start with a big one, a specific failure.
Yeah.
The ASC system go live disaster.
Mm-hmm. This one's a doozy.
Okay, let's unpack this anecdote, because the timeline here sounds, well, frankly, almost negligent. This critical ASC system, it was put together, debugged, supposedly ready to go just 1 week before the scheduled launch.
1 week?
Yeah. The source paints a picture of pure panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frantic is the word used. No time for the basics like proper testing or rest or even just thinking things through.
And that frantic push, it wasn't random. It was absolutely driven by fear. The manager in charge, a guy named Frank, retired Air Force colonel. Yeah. The source describes him vividly, loud in your face, the kind of boss who, makes people feel small. We're told some of the younger folks on the project, 19-year-olds, could barely even look him in the eye.
Wow. That's the environment we're talking about.
Yeah.
Not exactly conducive to hearing bad news.
Not at all. It's where reality goes to die, basically. And Frank's demand. Simple. Absolute. The system must launch on the date. No ifs, ands, or buts. The quote is stark. That was all there was to it. The date would come and we would be done. Period. No discussion. Over and out.
Just dictated.
Dictated. And his key people, Bill, the manager under him, and Jalil, the system analyst, they'd worked with Frank for years. They knew the risks, they understood the technical debt piling up, but they told the team, we're going live on the date, no matter what.
So they chose avoiding Frank's anger over avoiding, well, disaster.
Precisely. They prioritized conflict avoidance over operational reality.
And the disaster hit hard and fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
Driven by technical limits that any professional really should have flagged immediately. We should probably pause on the tech setup here because this is where the failure was just baked in.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about 36 terminals connecting the Teamsters headquarters in Chicago to a machine like 30 miles away.
Okay.
And the speed, cripplingly slow, 300 baud.
300. Wow. For context, what does that even mean today?
Think maybe 30 characters per second. Tiny. Today we talk gigabits, billions of bits per second. This was 300. And crucially, they were half-duplex.
Okay, I want to pause on that term, half-duplex.
Yeah.
For listeners who might not be network folks,
Yeah.
why is that specific detail so critical here? Why was it such a failure point?
Right. Think of it like an old walkie-talkie, not a modern phone call. Half-duplex means data can only go one way at a time. So if your terminal is sending something to the server can't send anything back until the terminal is done. They have to take turns. Now, imagine that in a busy place like a Teamsters HQ, trying to process lots of data, instant gridlock.
Right, you just have queues backing up everywhere.
Exactly. That structural bottleneck plus the snail's pace of 300 baud, it just guaranteed failure. And the team knew, the source implies they absolutely knew that under any kind of realistic load, these terminals would just lock up every 30 minutes, maybe more often.
But they still went live without even running simulated traffic first.
They hoped. They basically crossed their fingers and hoped the problem wouldn't actually happen in production. Spoiler. It did.
And it got worse, didn't it, with printing?
Oh, yeah. They were using these ancient AR-35 teletypes connected by even slower 110 baud phone lines. I mean, that's barely enough to send a tweet today.
110 baud.
Yeah. So when these printing jogs kicked off, the lines just froze solid. The whole system was basically designed to choke itself.
So the ultimate sign of failure is when the solution just creates more pain, right? And the solution here was, what? Rebooting everything?
System-wide chaos, essentially. Rebooting the whole system.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So when it locked up, everyone had to stop what they were doing. Imagine the frustration, the lost work. They'd wait for the system to come back online, get called back, and then manually re-enter all the data they'd lost during the freeze.
And this wasn't just like a one-time glitch.
No. The source says this whole reboot cycle was happening more than once per hour.
More than once an hour. The cost of that.
Right.
I mean, forget salaries for a second. Just the sheer disruption and frustration, that's immense. How long did this nightmare actually last before someone pulled the plug?
It lasted half a day. Just half a day into this blazing disaster. The Teamsters office manager, the actual customer, just shut it down. Done.
Sensible move.
Had to be done. They had to go back to the old system just to re-enter all the work lost during that half day. It was a total, predictable failure.
And yet, the pressure didn't stop there, did it? Frank, the colonel, comes back.
Wailing and roaring through the building, is how the source puts it. Demanding the system be running by the coming Friday.
Unbelievable. So, Bill and Jalil, the managers, they go back to the developers.
Yep. And the developers who've just lived through this disaster, they state the reality. 4 weeks. They needed 4 weeks just to fix the problems caused by Frank's impossible deadline in the first place.
But the bosses pushed back.
They insisted, no, it's really got to be Friday. Can you at least try? And here it is. This is the absolute critical moment of professional failure that this whole deep dive centers on. The team lead, he caved.
He said yes, or...
He eventually agreed, saying, okay, we'll try.
We'll try. Oh, those words.
Exactly. And the result of that surrender, weeks more of agony. They kind of survived Friday, partly because the weekend load was lighter, but the core problems lingered for weeks. Instability happening maybe once or twice a day instead of hourly. They just lived with it because the professional estimate was thrown out to avoid conflict.
So who gets the blame in the end? It sounds layered.
It is layered, but the source is pretty blunt. Frank's intimidation, that was the root cause, definitely. But Bill and Jalil, they should have pushed back harder. They knew better. And most critically, the team lead, the guy closest to the code, he should have continued to say no. That was his professional duty to defend the project's stability, to defend reality.
That pivot right there, from the technical mess to the professional duty, that's exactly what we need to explore next. It takes us right into the theory behind why saying no isn't just an option, it's a mandate.
Precisely.
Okay, so here's where it gets really, really interesting, I think. This fundamental difference, the source talks about the difference between being a professional and just.
Yeah.
Well, just being a laborer or someone following orders.
Yeah.
When we look back at that ASC disaster, we see people following Frank's orders, sure, but were they acting professionally? The source says no.
And that distinction is crucial. It's harsh but vital. The source draws a really strong line here. Laborers, historically, might hesitate to say no. Slaves, obviously, couldn't say no. But a professional, by definition, their value is their judgment. And they are expected to have the, quote, guts to say no. If you're not allowed to say, hang on, this path is impossible, or this approach is fundamentally flawed, then you're not really providing professional input, are you? You're just executing commands, like a cog in a machine.
You're not exercising the judgment you're paid for.
Exactly. Professionals are paid precisely because they bring that judgment, that reality check to the table. It's part of the job description.
But let's linger on the psychology for a second. If you're that 19-year-old developer or even the team lead facing down Frank the Colonel, the fear is real, isn't it? Fear of losing your job if you say no. How does the source square that personal risk with this idea of professional duty?
It doesn't pretend the risk isn't there. It's absolutely real. But it defines the role. It says true professionalism means aligning your personal integrity with what's best for the project, even if that means confrontation. It kind of shifts the burden. If the project fails because the technical reality was ignored because you didn't speak up, well, the source implies the moral failure is partly yours, regardless of how scary the boss was.
That's a tough standard.
It is, but it leads directly to this concept of adversarial roles, which sounds negative, but it's not about personal fights.
Right, it's structural.
Exactly. The idea is that the best toughest decisions, the ones that prevent ASC-level disasters, actually come from the constructive conflict between these roles.
So explain those roles. What's the manager's job in this model?
The manager's job is clear: pursue and defend their objectives aggressively. They're pushing for maximum scope, fastest timeline, best business outcome. That's their duty to the business. They should be pushing.
Okay. And the professional's role? The programmer, the engineer?
Their job is to pursue and defend their objectives just as aggressively. Things like quality, realism, maintainability, accurate timelines based on the work. If the manager pushes for speed above all else, the professional must push back with the need for quality and realistic assessment.
So back to the classic example. Manager demands a login page by tomorrow. You know it's 2 weeks of solid work. Saying, okay, I'll try.
Means you've immediately abandoned your professional duty. Right there. You've stopped defending quality. You've stopped defending reality.
Your duty then is to say,
No, that's impossible. And look, the manager isn't necessarily evil for asking. They're doing their job. They're relying on you, the professional, to do yours, which includes defending your estimate and the project's health. That friction, that tension, it's not bad. It's the negotiation process that ideally leads to the best possible outcome.
without that no, without that veto power.
The outcome is just the manager's wishful thinking, not reality.
Okay, but that friction, that conflict, it feels uncomfortable. Many managers see pushback, even professional pushback, as being difficult or insubordinate, don't they? So when does trying to keep things smooth, seeking harmony, actually become, well, dysfunctional and unprofessional?
It becomes dysfunctional the moment that desire for harmony stops reality from being discussed. If you make the meeting pleasant today by agreeing to something you know will cause failure tomorrow, you're actively choosing dysfunction. You're trading 5 minutes of awkwardness now for weeks of pain later. That right there is unprofessional conduct in any high-stakes job.
Okay, let's see that play out. Let's look at these negotiation scenarios the source gives us. Paula, the developer, and Mike, the manager, trying to agree on a deadline for a simple login page.
Right, 3 variations.
Scenario A, the path of least resistance, the pleasant lie. Mike says, Paula, need that login page done by tomorrow. Paula reacts maybe a bit surprised, but goes along. Oh, wow, that soon. Well, okay, I'll try. Mike's happy. Okay, that's great, thanks.
Textbook pleasant failure. Everyone leaves smiling, nobody feels bad in the moment, but both acted unprofessionally. Paula knows it'll take longer. Her "I'll try" is a lie, pure and simple, designed just to manage Mike's reaction, not the project's reality.
And Mike, what's his failure here?
His failure is accepting the lie. By taking "I'll try" at face value, especially when her tone probably gave her away. Oh, wow, that soon. He avoided the necessary professional step. The source says he should have picked up on the hesitation. He should have probed. You sound unsure, Paula. Can you really get it done? Or do we need to talk about what done means for tomorrow?
So they both failed the negotiation by choosing easy over honest.
Exactly. That's dysfunction level 1. Now, scenario B is even worse in some ways, more toxic. It's the passive-aggressive vagueness.
Okay.
Mike asks for the login page tomorrow. Paula avoids the direct "I'll try" lie this time. She deflects. Oh, sorry, Mike, but it's going to take me more time than that. Mike asks reasonably, okay, when can you do it? And Paula, instead of stating her estimate firmly, just sort of suggests a date. How about 2 weeks from now?
And Mike just accepts it.
He just scribbles it in his planner. Okay, thanks. And walks away.
Okay, on the surface, that seems maybe slightly better. Paula didn't lie about trying. But the source calls this outcome terribly dysfunctional and utterly unprofessional. Why? What's so bad about this seemingly quiet agreement?
2 big things. First, Paula was weak. She suggested a date. How about 2 weeks? Instead of asserting it based on her professional assessment, she should have said, Mike, based on the requirements, this is a 2-week task.
Okay, so she didn't own her estimate.
Right. But the really critical failure, the part the source calls morally reprehensible, is Mike's. He accepted the date without any challenge, no questions about why, no discussion about maybe reducing scope to speed things up, no negotiation at all.
He just took the date.
He just took the date.
Yeah.
And here's the reprehensible part. What's likely going to happen next? Mike goes back to his boss, or the project manager, and says, bad news, the demo needs to be postponed.
Yeah.
Why? Well, Paula estimates the login page will take 2 weeks.
He makes it entirely Paula's fault.
Exactly. He shifts all the organizational blame, all the consequences of the timeline slip squarely onto Paula. He gets to look like the reasonable manager, just relaying the facts, protecting his own image, while Paula looks like the bottleneck.
That's textbook passive aggression. He avoided conflict with Paula, and he avoids conflict with his boss by using Paula as a shield.
Yep. It's conflict avoidance raised to an art form. Neither of them actually worked towards a solution. They just punted the problem down the road and made Paula the scapegoat. Utterly dysfunctional.
Okay, so contrast that mess with scenario C.
Yeah.
This is the professional and, yeah, probably uncomfortable negotiation. Mike starts the same. Paula, I need the login page done by tomorrow. How does Paula respond this time?
Firmly, directly, professionally. No, Mike, that's a 2-week job.
Okay, direct no. What's Mike's reaction?
He pushes back using data, which is fair. 2 weeks. Paula, the architects estimated 3 days for that, and you've already been working on it for 5. This is the start of that necessary friction.
And Paula, does she get defensive?
Nope. She defends her estimate with facts, objective reasons. She says, essentially, Mike, the architects were working off old info. They did their estimates before product marketing added a ton of new requirements. I've got at least 10 more days of work here. Didn't you see my updated estimate on the wiki?
So she points to external changes, documented changes. She forces Mike to deal with the current reality, not the old plan.
Exactly. And Mike's reaction shows the discomfort of reality hitting home. He looks stern and trembling, the source says. He declares the 2 weeks unacceptable. Why? Because his customers are coming for a demo tomorrow. He's now feeling the consequences of his own poor planning or communication.
Okay, this feels like a critical moment. Does Paula just dig in her heels in the 2 weeks?
No, this is where the professional brilliance comes in. She accepts the reality of the demo constraint, acknowledges Mike's immediate problem, and instantly shifts the focus from the timeline to the scope. She asks the killer question, okay, Mike, what part of the login page do you need working by tomorrow?
Instead of fighting about the deadline for the whole thing, she asks what's essential for tomorrow.
Precisely. And the problem immediately clarifies. Mike doesn't need the Fort Knox all-singing, all-dancing login page tomorrow. He needs a prop for his demo. He needs something that lets him type in a username and password and click login so he can get to the next screen in his script.
He needs a facade.
Pretty much.
Yep.
So Paula, having found the actual need, offers the real solution. Mike, listen, I can give you a mock-up. Right now, I've got something working that will let you log in. Now, it won't actually check your password, okay? It won't handle forgotten passwords, no company banner, no fancy stuff. But you will be able to type something in and click logging. Will that do?
That's perfect. She said no to the impossible original request, but yes to Mike's actual immediate need for the demo.
Right. And Mike is relieved. I'll be able to log in. Yes, that's great, Paula. You're a lifesaver. They found the best possible outcome. Not the easiest conversation. Mike was clearly stressed. But they left with a solution that was honest, achievable, and met the real business need.
All because Paula had the professional courage to say no initially and then steer the conversation to scope.
They both acted like professionals in the end. They negotiated through the conflict.
Okay, quick point on the why. Paula mentioned the wiki, the marketing requirements. Should she have gone deeper into the technical reasons it takes 2 weeks? Like explaining database schemas or testing protocols.
The sources generally advise a bit of caution there. Explaining why is less critical than stating the fact that it takes 2 weeks and having some justification. Giving the high-level reason, like scope creep from marketing, is good for transparency.
But not too much detail.
Right, because if you give Mike a blow-by-blow of every task, 2 days for unit tests, 1 day for security review, 3 days for integration, you're basically inviting him to argue with your professional judgment. Do you really need 2 days for tests? Can't you just do 1?
It opens the door to micromanagement.
Exactly. Defend the estimate, provide the key reason, but generally keep ownership of how you get the work done. Maintain that professional boundary.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've seen the mechanics of good and bad negotiation on a relatively small feature. Now let's raise the stakes, like way up.
Right. Let's talk about situations where failing to say no doesn't just mess up a demo, it could literally put the whole company at risk.
This brings us to the Golden Goose Project. We have Don, the Director of Development, talking to Charles, the CEO. Don gives his estimate, 12 weeks. But crucially, he adds the professional uncertainty buffer, plus or minus 5 weeks.
Which is honest. Software estimation is hard. That means it could realistically take up to 17 weeks.
And Charles, the CEO, facing huge business pressure. How does he react to that uncertainty?
Not well. Fury. The source says he just glares at Don for a full 15 seconds, face getting red. He just cannot process the number. Do you mean to sit there and tell me, he says, that we might be 17 weeks from delivery?
And Don.
Don just confirms the reality calmly. That's possible, yes.
And then Charles explodes.
Pretty much. He reveals the backstory, the pressure he's under. Damn it, Dawn, this was supposed to be done 3 weeks ago. I've got Galatron, the big client, calling me every day wondering where their Fing system is. I am not going to tell them they have to wait another 4 months. You've got to do better.
So Charles is caught between the client and the reality Dawn is presenting.
And worse, Charles admits he'd already made promises based on bad info. He told the board 3 months ago, right after laying people off, that they only needed 3 more months. He based critical decisions, like layoffs, on a fantasy timeline.
Ouch. So he's trying to guilt Dawn.
Guilt, pressure, company loyalty. We can't afford to lose that order, Don. Without Galatron, we're really hosed. He's putting the company's survival on Don's shoulders.
And then comes the ultimate pressure tactic, right?
Yeah.
Threatening his job.
Yep, Charles plays his last card. Damn. I don't suppose it would matter if I told you your job was at stake. Hoping Don will finally break and give him the answer he wants to hear.
This is the absolute test. What does Don do? Does he say, "I'll try"?
Not a chance. Don's response is pure professional integrity. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't offer false hope. He doesn't apologize for reality. He says, there's nothing I can do, Chuck. We've been through this already. Galatron won't cut scope, and they won't accept any interim releases. I simply cannot do that any faster. It's not going to happen.
Wow. Just flat refusal to participate in the delusion.
And to the job threat, the ultimate professional veto. Firing me isn't going to change the estimate, Charles.
Boom. Mic drop.
Absolutely. That is professionalism under fire. Don wasn't trying to be a hero. He was simply refusing to lie. If he had caved, if he had promised 12 weeks knowing it was 17, what happens?
Charles keeps making bad decisions based on the lie. Maybe more layoffs, maybe other commitments.
Exactly. The project still takes 17 weeks, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Because of the chaos caused by the false promise, and the damage to the company is even worse. Don, by holding firm, was actually defending the company from its own leadership's wishful thinking. He forced the CEO to confront reality, however painful.
The delay wasn't Don's fault. The failure was the organization not facing facts earlier. Don was just the messenger with the guts to deliver the message.
Precisely. He delivered the truth.
Okay, that whole high-stakes scenario really throws a spotlight on maybe the most misused phrase in business: being a team player.
Oh, yeah. That one gets trotted out all the time, usually to mean just say yes and don't make waves.
Right. It's used to demand compliance, to push for overtime, to get people to agree to those pleasant lies we talked about.
And it's a total misunderstanding of what real teamwork is. A true team player. They protect the team's ability to do good work. They communicate honestly, frequently. They deliver on their own responsibilities reliably. It does not mean being a yes man who agrees to things that will burn out the team or compromise the project just to avoid an awkward conversation.
Let's see this myth get busted again.
Yeah.
Back to Paula and Mike in a slightly different scenario. The 6-week demo. Mike has gone ahead and scheduled a customer demo for 6 weeks out.
Even though Paula had previously estimated the work would take about 8 weeks. So Mike's already ignored her professional input.
Right, and he immediately starts the manipulation. Come on, Paula. You can't push that 8-week estimate on us.
Paula, trying to find a middle ground, maybe trying to be that team player initially, she agrees to the 6-week target, but she's smart. She immediately defines the scope limitations. Okay, 6 weeks, but it won't be the whole system. Features will be missing. The data load won't be complete.
And Mike accepts that. The limited scope.
He accepts it, for now. But Mike, being Mike, he really wants the whole thing. So he starts pushing again, not on the date, but on the effort. He starts hinting at overtime. I know you guys can figure out something, he says, trying to cajole her into finding a magic way to do 8 weeks of work in 6.
And Paula's response.
She holds firm. She repeats the reality. We're all pretty creative, Mike. We've got a good handle on the problem, and the date for the full scope is going to be 8 or 9 weeks, not 6. She refuses to pretend there's some hidden effort she's holding back.
So Mike switches tactics again. Tries guilt.
Yep. He tries to shame her, implying her estimate is what's slowing things down. That 8-week estimate just makes us go slower, Mike. Trying to make it sound like her fault they can't meet his arbitrary deadline.
Ooh, that's low. How does Paula handle that?
Beautifully. She doesn't take the bait. She calmly reminds him of past failures caused by exactly this kind of pressure. Remember the mess we made last time that we mandated overtime? Overtime doesn't make us faster, Mike. It makes us slower because we make more mistakes. We went through this. She uses shared history, shared pain, to counter his manipulation.
Nice. Using data and past experience.
Exactly. So Mike tries one last time, shifting back to cajoling. Okay, get me your best plan for 6 weeks, but keep thinking about how to get it done fully in 6 weeks. I know you guys will figure out something. He's still trying to plant that seed of hope for a miracle.
He just won't let it go.
But Paula shuts it down completely. The final, professional mandate. No, Mike, we won't. I'll get you a plan for 6 weeks, but it will be missing a lot of features and data. That's just how it's going to be. Facts. No fantasy, no wiggle room for him to hope for more.
She delivered the plan she promised, but refused to entertain the impossible.
And the source points out Mike wasn't necessarily evil. He just wanted to look good to his boss, Don. He was maybe overconfident in his ability to, charm or pressure people into doing what he wanted.
But Paula, by pushing back, by defending reality, she was the one actually being the team player, wasn't she?
Absolutely. She protected the team from burnout. She protected the project from the chaos of rushing. She aggressively defended her professional position, rejecting Mike's attempts to manipulate the situation. She forced the organization, through Mike, to deal with reality. That's playing for the team.
And this whole dynamic brings us squarely back to that phrase we heard earlier. The most dangerous phrase, maybe. Okay, we'll try.
Ah, yes. The trap of trying. The source is really strong on this. It calls it the worst possible response to pressure. We need to tackle what it calls the Yoda heresy.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Exactly. And it's not just a cool movie quote. It's presented as a really rigorous standard for professional accountability. We have to break down what try actually means when a professional says it.
Okay.
When you, as a professional, say, I'll try, you are implicitly admitting something. You're admitting you have a reserve, a hidden stash of extra effort you haven't deployed yet, late nights, skipped lunches, weekend work.
Right, like an emergency fund of effort.
Exactly. So scenario one,
Yeah.
if the goal is actually reachable, but only if you dip into that emergency fund, well, then saying I'll try is okay. It's a commitment. You're saying, okay, this is important enough. I commit to burning that extra fuel to get it done. That's honest.
That's a defensible use of try.
Yes. But here's the poison. Scenario two. The goal is not attainable, even with that extra effort. You know it takes 2 weeks, they give you 1 day. You know your reserve tank is empty. You have no new plan, no brilliant shortcut just occurred to you.
Right.
In that situation, promising to try is, well, the source calls it fundamentally dishonest. You're lying. You're lying to save face, to avoid the uncomfortable confrontation right now.
And you're setting yourself up for guaranteed failure later.
Guaranteed failure. And worse, you're promising to do exactly what you were going to do anyway, only now you've added the crushing psychological weight of having promised a miracle you know you can't deliver. It just creates this toxic cycle of failure and blame.
Avoid the lie. State the reality. That seems to be the consistent message.
It is. And the ultimate cost of not doing that, of constantly falling into the I'll try trap, of chasing hero status instead of professional results, that's brutally illustrated in our next case study. The saga of John Blanco and Code Impossible.
Ah, John Blanco, the developer who tried to be the hero. This story doesn't end well, does it?
Not for his professional standing, no. The setup was basically instant disaster waiting to happen. The client, Gorilla Mart, huge retailer. The need, an iPhone app. The deadline, Black Friday.
Okay, high pressure already.
And the timeline. The app had to be written and approved by Apple in, wait for it, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Completely.
Including Apple review time. That's insane.
Completely insane. John knew Apple approval alone could easily eat a week or more. He knew client feature requests always snowball and get more complex. He knew it was basically impossible, but he wanted the glory. He wanted to be the hero who pulled it off. So he said yes. He accepted the deadline.
And that, yes, kicked off.
2 weeks of pure professional hell. Because of constant client meetings demanding his time, that 2-week window effectively shrank to just 8 days of actual coding. 8 days.
How did he even manage?
Brute force. The source says he logged 74 hours the first week, another 74 the second, just coding in an absolute fury.
And the code quality must have suffered immensely.
Oh, fundamentally. He admitted using every single shortcut that screams unprofessional. He used copy and paste coding extensively, which he cynically called reusable code.
Which means if you find a bug in one place, you have to find and fix it in 10 other places.
Exactly. Nightmare for maintenance. He used magic numbers everywhere, hard-coded values scattered through the code instead of properly defined constants, another maintenance disaster waiting to happen.
And the biggest sin, professionally speaking.
The cardinal sin for anyone under pressure, and no unit tests. Absolutely zero.
Wow. The safety net was completely removed.
His justification tells you everything about his mindset. Who needs red bars from failing tests at a time like this? It just demotivate me. He chose the illusion of speed over the reality of correctness and stability.
So he hacked together something that kind of worked, at least on his machine.
Yeah, he got something working that he thought was pretty stellar, but it was built on sand. The only way he could even pretend to hit the deadline was by abandoning every professional practice. Massive technical debt accrued from day one.
And inevitably, the scope creep happened too.
Of course. As the source reminds us, the client always asks for more. The deadline always gets squeezed. He ended up having to agree to build a PHP server backend, add email registration, implement coupon expiration logic, all piled onto the impossible timeline. His work week ballooned past 90 hours.
Just unsustainable.
Oh.
So the inevitable collapse.
Yeah.
How did it happen? Did the code just fall over?
Here's the tragic irony. The code itself, despite being terrible, wasn't the immediate cause of the failure. Apple rejected the app submission a week later. Why? Not for bugs, not for crashing.
Why then?
Because it was missing the app description in the submission form.
You're kidding. A simple administrative detail.
A simple procedural mistake completely unrelated to the 90-hour weeks of frantic coding. All that sacrifice, all that technical debt, all that unprofessional practice, invalidated by forgetting to fill in a text box.
Oh, the pain. That must have been crushing.
John called it a time for mortal dread. And worse, he didn't realize the cause immediately. He spent 2 more weeks sacrificing family time, sleep, everything, frantically trying to debug the non-existent code problem, only to finally discover it was just the misdescription.
And the ultimate lesson there seems to be.
Rush to complete, slow to market. His frantic rush led directly to the mistake that caused the critical delay.
So John's failure wasn't just the bad code, it was multi-layered, wasn't it?
Absolutely. He failed professionally on so many levels. 1, he failed by accepting the initial insane 2-week deadline, knowing it was unrealistic. 2, he failed by accepting all the subsequent scope creep without pushing back or adjusting the timeline. 3, he failed by choosing 90-hour weeks over sustainable practice. 4, and fundamentally, he failed by abandoning professional standards, no tests, copy-paste, magic numbers in the pursuit of speed. The only way he thought he could succeed was by behaving unprofessionally.
And his motivation. It wasn't really about delivering value for Gorilla Mart, was it?
Not primarily. His motivation, as the source suggests, was ego. He wanted the accolades. He wanted to be the greatest developer ever. He wanted to be the hero, the savior, the miracle worker.
Not the professional.
Exactly. Professionals don't chase hero status by cutting corners. They succeed by doing the job well, reliably, sustainably, on time, on budget. John's desire to be the hero, achieved by unprofessional means, was the root cause of the entire debacle. If he'd said a firm no up front, insisted on realistic timelines, proper practices, unit tests, Gorilla Mart might have had to adjust their plans, maybe launch with fewer features, maybe miss Black Friday. But they would likely have ended up with a stable, maintainable product delivered professionally instead of a rushed failure.
Okay, that really brings everything together. Let's try to synthesize this. We've seen the real costs of saying yes when you should say no. Project failure with the AC disaster, driven by Frank's intimidation.
Right. We saw the moral failure, the passive aggression, with Mike just accepting Paula's vague timeline to avoid conflict and shift blame.
And we saw John Blanco's personal and professional collapse, driven by his own desire for heroism, leading to code impossible.
And contrasting all that, we saw Paula as the model of professionalism. She held firm against Mike's manipulation, his cajoling, his unreasonable deadlines. And crucially, the source notes her strategy wasn't just verbal. She used memos. She documented her refusals, documented the risks, documented the agreed-upon scope limitations.
Covering her bases professionally.
Covering her bases, yes. But more importantly, ensuring clarity and accountability. She did everything possible to help Mike meet his real needs, like the demo mock-up, but she absolutely forced him, and by extension the organization, to confront the reality of the timeline and the scope. She provided value by defending the truth.
Which circles us back to that core question the source material keeps asking. Is good code impossible? Is professionalism impossible?
And the answer that emerges from all these stories, all these analyses, seems crystal clear. Professionalism is only impossible if you give up your professional right, your professional duty to say no.
The courage to say no is the prerequisite.
It's the absolute foundation, saying no not just to impossible deadlines, but also to those insidious requests that chip away at quality. Can't we just skip the tests this one time? Can't you just copy that code over? Can't you work the weekend again? Saying no to unsustainable pressure, saying no to shortcuts that create long-term pain.
So the biggest takeaway for you listening right now, the strategy to internalize is what?
That saying no, when it's based on your professional judgment, on data, on reality, it
Yeah.
isn't being negative. It isn't creating conflict for conflict's sake. Is the ultimate act of defending the project's success. It's the only way to deliver genuine, lasting value. Your courage to say no isn't a liability. It's arguably your most valuable professional asset.
So it really reframes the whole idea of professional responsibility. Okay, that brings us toward the end of this deep dive. We've traced the ugly consequences of intimidation, of passive aggression, of the false promise of trying. We saw how Dawn and Paula navigated intense pressure through professional confrontation. The common thread, that essential power of the professional veto.
Indeed. And we spent a lot of time drawing that distinction between the hero, the one-off miracle worker using unsustainable methods, and the professional who delivers consistently through discipline and realism. So here's a final thought for you to chew on, something to consider in your own work.
Okay.
If you find yourself constantly being put in the position of being asked to try to pull that rabbit out of the hat, to work miracles against impossible odds, ask yourself this. Are you being valued and leveraged for your genuine ability to solve hard problems within realistic constraints? Or are you actually being used as a crutch, a way for the organization to avoid facing its own dysfunctional planning, its own refusal to accept reality? Which of those roles, the professional problem solver or the miracle-working hero masking dysfunction, is truly sustainable for you? And more importantly, which one ultimately serves the project, the team, and the customer best in the long run? Go forth and define and defend your professional boundaries.